The top stories: war against TPLF vital to stop ethnic fragmentation virus from becoming an African pandemic. And historian says constitutional issues should remain top priority for public consensus. Hello, many thanks for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. The historical town of Lalibela has been busy preparing itself to be the best host for the thousands of diaspora members and tourists flocking to it from all corners of the globe. It is recalled that the Ministry of Tourism announced that the upcoming Ganna or Ethiopian Christmas holiday will be celebrated nationally in the historical town of Lalibela, a World Heritage Site, on January 7th. A huge number of the diaspora community who have come back home as part of the Great Ethiopian Homecoming and tourists have already begun arriving at the town. The celebration of Ganna Festival at the town of Lalibela is aimed to stimulate the tourism industry of the country after the heavy destructions wreaked on it by the terrorist TPLF. Our staff reporter, Santayo Tamrat, has traveled to Lalibela and now joins us on the phone to walk us through the general vibe in the historical town and its preparations to host the huge number of the diaspora communities and foreign tourists headed there to celebrate Ethiopian Christmas. Santayo, a very good evening to you and great having you on Addis News Hour.
Thank you, Tabitha.
Can you please begin with the observations you witnessed on your way to Lalibela?
Yeah, I could observe some of the towns invaded previously by the TPLF. And in fact, anyone can easily spot the destruction is made in the towns. Yesterday and today, I could see a lot of towns, of the towns in Amhara region, which include Devresina, Kamise, Shawarobit, Dese, Kombolcha, Weldia, Gashena, and Lalibela, which were recently freed by the allied forces of Ethiopia. And in these towns, the TPLF destroyed both economic and social infrastructure. You can easily spot schools, health facilities, administrative offices, hotels, and others looted and destroyed by the TPLF. And the TPLF also destroyed roads, bridges, electric lines, transmission lines, factories, telecom facilities, and so on. So these destructions have hampered active day-to-day activities of this town, as I mentioned. But businesses are open, hotels are reopened, and also the cities, the towns, in general, the entire area I have passed through is quite safe and also peaceful. However, a few towns could not get electric power because huge damage was made to transmission lines by the TPLF. But in these areas, I also saw that some people are working to fix this problem. Apart from my random observation, I asked residents and some business people in the areas about the situation that the TPLF made, and they replied there is no evil left that the TPLF has not done so far. So these are just my observations, Tabitha.
Wow. What a very clear picture of what's happening there. So what's the general vibe in Lalibela town, and what are some of the preparations being made by the town to host the large number of guests who are already flocking in for the Ganna celebrations?
Yeah, you said a large number of people are flocking to the Lalibela from different parts of the country, and the congregation started occupying the compounds of the 11 churches of the Monolithic Church Lalibela. And a lot of people, a lot of calories, a lot of small temporary like businesses, some foreign visitors, the diaspora people, and more are seen in the town of Lalibela today in the afternoon. I arrived here in the afternoon. Then all at the gates, there is a unique ceremony of washing the feet of the guests. And despite the damages the TPLF made here, every resident, every business, every hotel, restaurant, the church and the Lalibela town, as well as zonal and regional administrations, have been making preparations to welcome guests. I guess you know that the Ethiopian Airlines started flight as of Monday, and there is a flight twice a day that I heard this. And there is also a tight security protocol with number of security forces here and there.
Our staff reporter, Santayo Tamrat, thank you very much for your observations.
Thank you, Tabitha. Good night.
The process of resisting the aggression by the TPLF by Ethiopians from all walks of life is helping unveil the anti-Africanism sentiment of the TPLF. Thus, Ethiopian war against TPLF is an African war vital to prevent the virus of the ethnic fragmentation from becoming an African pandemic. The war is also bringing out democratic consequences. Tigist Tarnisa presents the following account.
Given the horrendous loss in human life and property that the TPLF war of destruction inflicted on the Afar and Amhara regions, one may find it strange to think that the war has benefited that Ethiopians must put to good use. Amongst the benefits are, the war has exposed the anti-African nature of the TPLF, providing Ethiopia with political assets beneficial for its present and future diplomatic dealings with African countries. And the TPLF war has created conditions that reinforce democracy in Ethiopia. What TPLF was interested in is not federalism, but maintaining Ethiopia as a collection of ethnic groups, opening the door to an eventual return to power through its time-tested practice of ethnic divide and rule, or to an eventual secession of Tigray. The ethnic politics that the TPLF espouses is profoundly anti-African. This becomes clear when one considers the TPLF in the context of African history and politics. TPLF's logic of ethnic federalism brings out unwittingly that Ethiopia's war against TPLF is Africa's war, necessary to prevent the virus of ethnic fragmentation from becoming an African pandemic. Though ruinous, the war demonstrates that Ethiopia is, as the country has always been, the defender of sovereignty, integrity of African countries, and the determined opponent of anti-Africanism. This is surely an important post-war benefit that Ethiopia reaps from TPLF's aggression. The democratic consequences of the TPLF war started when Ethiopian soldiers from different regions fighting side by side to defend Ethiopia from the TPLF's project to dismantle the country, discovered in the trenches their commonly shared Ethiopian identity and interests. In the trenches of the war were thus demolished the ethnic barriers and divisions that the TPLF cultivated and institutionalized during its 27 years in power. The TPLF's aggression meant to destroy Ethiopia, thus gave birth to new forms of trans-ethnic empathy, solidarity, and fraternity. The very process of TPLF's disguised political participation affirms the exclusion of Ethiopians as active political agents, freely choosing the kind of society they would like to create and live in. It was a congenitally anti-democratic procedure whose purpose was to ensure TPLF's domination of the Ethiopian state and economy. However, the TPLF's war against Ethiopia has sounded the death knell of inter-passive participation, of its culture of exclusion, and of its underlying ethnic politics. Both in Ethiopia and in the diaspora, Ethiopians have become the initiators, authors, imaginers, organizers, and implementers of activities dedicated to goals that they themselves have identified and defined. The emergency of these democratic elements as responses to TPLF's aggression tells us that there's no going back to the dark days of inter-ethnic division and alienation.
Hands off Ethiopia. Don't interview with the government. Let them do their job. And if we need help, if the government of Ethiopia needs help, they will ask for it.
There's no going back to inter-passive participation and political exclusions. In its war against Ethiopia, the TPLF has pulled out all stops and will continue to do so to represent itself as a victim of genocide and atrocities and to mobilize against Ethiopia the international media, American and the European politicians and Western NGOs. The record shows that up to now that the Ethiopian government has been outmaneuvered in the information war. It has failed to explain and defend Ethiopia's cause proactively, methodically, persuasively, and vigorously. Perhaps we need to listen to the advice of Reinhold Niebuhr. The preservation of a democratic civilization requires the wisdom of the serpent and the harmlessness of the dove. Only then could Ethiopians cap the present military victory with a political one and allow flourishing the democratic culture that they have created in their resistance to TPLF's aggression.
While a myriad of issues remain divisive in the highly polarized Ethiopian politics, a historian suggests that addressing constitutional issues should remain a topmost priority to bring about public consensus. The historian also underlined that economic and social issues should be brought to the table for a more stable society. Jerusalem Betzaha has the following account.
The PRDF-led government adopted ethnic federalism and remapped the country along ethnic lines as soon as it took political power in 1991. The constitution also classifies the member states of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia into regional states. However, recently, the indivisibility Ethiopians, which has been the result of thousands of years of interaction, has been eroded, and the stable ethnic composition has been disrupted by the introduction of ethnic federalism. That has resulted in a number of conflicts, cases of ethnic cleansing, and unspeakable crimes committed against humanity in the country by the TPLF over the last 27 years. The recent ethnic-based atrocities targeting the Amhara and Afar perpetrated by terrorist TPLF with the view to address the polarization still pervasive in the society, the Ethiopian government has recently formed the National Dialogue Commission. Talking to ETV, the scholar Dagmai Tesfaye said constitution should still be the number one priority when dialogue begins.
One of the areas where Ethiopians really need to do and need to come together and think about is the constitution, because the basic ideology of the constitution really defies the ongoing challenge, because it divides the Ethiopian people along ethnic lines, and there are many limitations to that constitution. So the new Ethiopia really deserves a more inclusive and more objective constitution that could also lay ground for modern Ethiopia, and Ethiopia in which is inclusive to other groups too.
There are a number of economic and social issues creating rifts between Ethiopians, as the nation still reels from the effects of 27 years of apartheid-like rule and 13 months-long war. The gap between the rich and the poor has kept widening as a means of production, and access to goods remain key issues. Economic policy issues must constitute an agenda for a more credible dialogue to take place, says the historian.
The economic system is also very critical, because Ethiopia has been following an economic policy that was not effective for the past 27 years, and this also needs to be really nearly to be changed according to the objective situation of the country. As you know, we find ourselves in the middle of economic challenge, largely as a result of the global economy and also as a result of many challenges in the local economic front. So Ethiopians need also to think the kind of economic policy that is suitable for the country and need to work out this.
Ethiopia has already announced the beginning of nomination process to select the 11 commissioners to preside over the much talked about commission. One of the issues that the commission is expected to grapple with, says the historian, concerns social policy.
Social policy is very important because we are talking of change. In the past 27 years, there has been different social setting. What does the new Ethiopia social setting should look like is also another agenda that the national consensus may appreciate.
The bill for the creation of the Commission states that it will pave the way for national consensus and keep the integrity of the country. According to the bill, the task of nominating commissioners has gone to the 547-seat National Legislative Assembly, also known as Parliament.
My family used to live. Yo, this roundabout with no type of traffic light, I literally can't, bro. And people just walk. ¿En todo? ኖርማል ገባን። አሁን ወደ ላይ እንሄዳለን እና ሾፑ እናያለን።
አዲስ ሰማይ አዲስ ፀሐይ አዲስ ዝናብ አዲስ ሀሳብ ይንገስ ይፍሰስ አዲስ በጋ
Welcome back. You're watching Addis News Hour. The Ethiopian Embassy in London hosted a farewell ceremony for Ethiopians and people of Ethiopian origin in the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland coming home responding to the Great Homecoming Challenge. Ethiopian Ambassador in London, Teferi Mellese, has commended Ethiopians in the diaspora for supporting their country in times of its needs, protesting undue external pressures, and discouraging illegal exchange of foreign currency. He in particular appreciated the unwavering support that the Defend Ethiopia Task Force in the UK has been doing in guarding the interests of Ethiopia and its people. The Homecoming Challenge would also provide the homecomers with the opportunity to witness the reality on the ground and support efforts to change the false narratives on the situation in Ethiopia and encourage the flow of tourism to the country, he said. Zelalem Tesema, coordinator of the Defend Ethiopia Task Force in the UK, said they are heading to Ethiopia to show the world that Ethiopia is peaceful and ripe for doing business. Diaspora members, for their part, said they are responding to the government call to actively participate in rebuilding and rehabilitation efforts. Ethiopian ambassador to India, Tizita Mulugeta, has held discussions with honorary consuls of Ethiopia based in Nepal and Bangladesh about the current situation in the country. The ambassador spoke in detail about the egregious human rights abuses, atrocities, and destruction of civilian infrastructure by TPLF cliques in Amhara and Afar region of Ethiopia, as well as the efforts made by the Ethiopian government to rehabilitate rehabilitate and construct the conflict-affected areas. The Honorary Consuls have pledged to discharge their duties in creating awareness about the current situation in Ethiopia to the concerned bodies and make active participation to support the rehabilitation and construction efforts of the government of Ethiopia, according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia.